Hi everybody, Sarah Elder, manager at the Remington Nature Center, and we're so glad you joined us today for, I believe it's the 21st annual Super Science Saturday that has gone virtual this year. Miss Shelley was just talking to you from the Nature Center about reptiles. We're going to do a little bit about mammals. Just right now, this mammal, it's the second largest mammal in the world and the largest mammal in North America, and was incredibly important to the development and the history of St. Joseph. And that is the beaver. And this is a display we have at the Remington Nature Center. It is of a beaver dam / lodge. And the beaver's, of course, down here, he's really distinctive because he's got that big flat tail. And that tail is a rudder to help him swim, because he will swim in water, he will get out on land. The tail is also a warning system. So if an adult feels threatened and he needs to alert the rest of the lodge, he can slap that tail on the water. It will make a really loud noise and let everybody else know, let all the other beavers know that there's danger in the area. Now, beavers have this really thick waterproof coat, which also helps them to be in the water as much as they can. And they will build dams on lakes, ponds, rivers. And in fact, before St. Joseph became a town, when this was just wide open prairie, there are reports that you could find beaver dams about every mile along the Missouri River. And what that does is it dams the water, and it creates water features kind of behind it, which also attracts food that the beaver likes to eat. But his favorite food to eat are aspen and willow branches. And that's where his teeth come into play. These teeth, they can get long and they grow continuously. Imagine if your front teeth grew all the time. Well, to keep them short, because if he didn't keep them short, then it would cause problems with eating, it would cause problems with walking. So they nibble. That's how they gnaw on branches, they gnaw on trees. Everything they just gnaw on keeps their teeth short. And they have that distinctive orange color because it's a really thick enamel, which, because they're eating on hard surfaces or gnawing on hard surfaces, that they don't wear down their teeth all the way down. It just keeps the teeth short. So you have the beaver dams, which block up water. But if we come around here, they also created lodges. And these would be literally islands floating in the lakes or ponds. And this is where the beavers would live. Now, beavers typically do mate for life. And a litter of kits, which are what baby beavers are called, could be anywhere from maybe 1 to 4 in a lodge, but that's where they would live. And that's kind of where they don't truly hibernate, but this is where they would spend most of their time in the wintertime. But you can see all the branches that they would cut in the wooded areas and bring to their beaver dams. Now, the beaver was important in the 1800s in the United States, and in particularly out in the western part of the United States, because of its fur. This is a beaver pelt. Let me set this down. And I know it's tough with just video, but the fur or the pelt is super thick. And fur trappers and traders would actually head west from St. Louis, and they'd come up the Mississippi River and the Missouri River, and they would find beavers themselves, or they would trade with the Native Americans for beaver pelts. And I believe, and Miss Shelley can correct me if I'm wrong, but at one time they thought there were 200 million, about 200 million beaver in this part of the country, or in North America. But this pelt was so thick and so rich looking, and it could be any color from kind of the light golden brown to an almost black. This became so popular for clothing, and one particular item, the top hat. This is actually a beaver hat. It is made from that pelt that then has chemicals put onto it and turned into a felt, and then we turn into those top hats that the gentlemen in the 1800s would wear. Probably the most famous person to wear a top hat or a top hat made from beaver was Abraham Lincoln. So those photographs that you see of him wearing the top hat, that hat would be made of beaver. Now, because fur trappers and traders and the Native Americans hunted these beaver, and this is actually a trade blanket. This is what the fur traders would bring blankets and beads to trade with the Native Americans for the pelts that they had hunted. But because so many beaver were hunted, they were put on the endangered list several years ago. There were very little beaver left in North America. But because of conservation efforts, they have come back. It's estimated that there are 11 million beaver in North America, I believe. So they are now considered a species of least concern, which means that they have come back. They are breeding on their own. They are not being decimated by hunting. I don't think they're considered to be protected per se, but they are still least concern, and you can see them. If you're lucky enough, you can see them out in the wild. Now, we're gonna head outside here in just a little bit. I gotta grab a coat because it's a little chilly today. And I'm gonna show you where Joseph Robidoux, the founder of St. Joseph, established his first fur trading post. Okay, we have moved outside, and I am now in the general vicinity of the first trading post that Joseph Robidoux actually established in 1825. Now, that body of water that you saw a little bit earlier, that's called Roy's Branch. Now, it's not in this exact location as it was in the 1800s. It's moved a little bit through natural erosion and through man-made kind of redirecting it a little bit. But in this general vicinity, kind of off in that wooded area, Joseph Robidoux arrived in what was known as Black Snake Hills about 1825. And he established his trading post here, which meant that the people who traveled up and down the river would come to his trading post to trade the furs that they had trapped, or the Native Americans in the area would actually come to the trading post and trade for the furs that they had. Okay, sorry about that little break there. We had a train come through. So if I repeat myself a little bit, I do apologize. The joys of being down on the river, you get to encounter all sorts of fun stuff. Anyway, Joseph Robidoux established his trading post in this general area about 1825. And as I said, people brought the furs to him to trade for guns, for ammunition, for blankets, for beads. And then those furs would be bundled up by Joseph Robidoux and his workers, and then be sent back downriver to places like St. Louis, where they would then be further sent east to places in Ohio and then New York and Philadelphia, where they'd be turned into those top hats and clothing. Now, for whatever reason, Joseph Robidoux only stayed down in this area for about a year, probably because he flooded out. And we do know this area does flood even today. And he moved about a mile south to the mouth of Black Snake Creek. And the mouth of the creek still empties into the Missouri River. You can still go down there, walk as part of the river trail and see it. And that was the establishment of Black Snake Hills, which is what this area was known by on all the maps until July 1843, when St. Joseph was established as a town. So that's the connection that the beavers and the natural history had to the history of St. Joseph. Black Snake Creek, legend has it, takes its name because apparently supposedly there were thousands of black snakes in the area. We don't know that to be true or not, but that's the story that's come down through time. So that's the connection between St. Joseph history, not only the history of the people and how it founded, but the history with natural history. So that's all we've got for you today. Again, just like Miss Shelley said, we hope that you will come down and see us. We do have a really cool thing coming up. Keep your eye on Facebook, like us on Facebook, and we'll start hinting at some things probably starting next week. If not next week, the 1st of February. So just keep your eye out on the Facebook page. Thanks again for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.